Okay, my name is Sergeant Teresa Dawson. I'm a sergeant at Lancaster Sheriff Station. I am also the board president of the Valley Oasis. We oversee the domestic violence shelter, outreach programs, thrift store, sexual assault response service, CalWorks, and other. We have 14 different programs within our agency. The reason I'm here tonight is because I wanted to talk to you guys about rape prevention. And it's not even really just rape prevention, it's also safety prevention. You might think. Okay, it's estimated by the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department that 8 out of 10 sexual assaults involve the use of drugs and or alcohol by the victim. 1 in 4 females will be assaulted in their lifetime. 1 in 12 males will be assaulted in their lifetime. However, for most men, it's usually under the age of 16. 8 out of 10 assailants are known to the victim, which means it's an acquaintance, family member, neighbor, somebody that they know. There's different kinds of assaults. There's spousal rape, acquaintance rape, stranger rape, sexual battery, unlawful sex with a minor, rape in concert, child molestation, incest. There's a lot more on there of different sexual assaults. But these are kind of the categories for our statistical purposes. We have not included child molestation or incest in our statistics. In 2008, there were 47 forcible rapes reported in the city of Lancaster. 6 were attempted, 31 involved adults, 22 involved juveniles. In Lancaster in 2009, there were 50 forcible rapes, 4 attempts, 29 involved adults, females, and 25 juveniles. What's really scary about these statistics is that throughout history or throughout our reporting through law enforcement, only 10% of sexual assaults ever get reported. So you're looking at these numbers here, it's hard to see that, you times this times 9 more times, and that's probably a more accurate number. The days of the week, you can see that on the weekends, starting from Thursday, a little drop in Friday, but Saturday and Sunday, the highest days where sexual assaults occur. The nighttime hours, this is broken down by race, but no race is going to be more victim or suspect than any other race. Any economic status, anywhere you live, none of that makes really a difference as far as statistical purposes. 65% of the reported sexual assaults were committed to someone known to the victim. That's a pretty high number. And this is someone that's known. I'm not talking about a stranger that just, when we're talking about stranger rapes or acquaintance rapes, these are people that you might have already met before. It's not a complete stranger. 35% occurred while the victim was intoxicated. The majority occurred at a party, a club, or bar, or the suspect was hanging out at a location, kickbacks, going to the friends' houses, just hanging out. 17% while the victim was in a relationship with the suspect, whether it be their spouse, boyfriend, boyfriend. 15 occurred while the victim was hanging out at the same location. So these might just be a bunch of kids or adults hanging out at a place. 12% occurred while they were attending a party, club, or bar. 12% occurred while the victim was walking on the street. The victim got into the suspect's vehicle or the vehicle approached him on foot. And 10% occurred while the victim was living within the same residence of the suspect. So that could be a family member, a roommate, or somebody in a common living area. So what is rape? Rape is means by force or fear. It used to be, back in the day, where a woman had to fight for every inch of her life in order for it to be considered a rape. It's not like that now. No means no. No means one time saying, no, I don't want this. Anything that's anything different than that is a sexual assault. Unlawful sex with a minor, the victim's between 14 and 17 years old. A lot of times parents will contact us and say their 15-year-old daughter's involved with the 18-year-old male. It's hard to explain to the young girls that if they're involved with somebody, even though they're 18 years old and they're younger, if there's a 3-age difference between them and the person that they're with, it's a felony. It's a felony for the 18 or 19-year-old that's with a 14 or 15-year-old female. So we need to educate our children, especially our young kids. Now, are parents or the children going to come forward with that relationship? We don't have any control of that. But however, the district attorney's office can prosecute on that. So we just want you guys to be aware of that. However, it doesn't apply if they're married. Now, whether there's a 3-year difference, if they're 15 and they're 26, if they're legally married, that's an okay relationship. An unconscious person can never give consent. If you're passed out, you can't say yes. You can't agree to any kind of a physical relationship with somebody. If the person's intoxicated, they can't fight back. They can't say yes or no. They can't make an educated decision whether they want to engage in that kind of relationship. So again, if you have young men at home, please let them know anytime they're out, they take that risk when they're with somebody that if that person's intoxicated, that they may or may not realize that they're giving their consent for that kind of a relationship, and the next day it might be a totally different story. In instances where it's called a drug-facilitated sexual assault, either she's given a woman is even given drugs, either by slipping it in a drink, they're giving pills, they spike a drink. This is what's called a drug-facilitated sexual assault. The number one drug used to commit sexual assault is alcohol. And the reason being is that it's readily accessible. And the victim or survivor often consumes it herself. She may serve herself, she may be served it, but she's drinking it willingly. And that's, I think, the most difficult thing for people to understand is you have to be aware of not only where you're at, what you're doing when you're consuming alcohol, but who you're with when you're doing it. Over-the-counter drugs, medications, a lot of the parties we're seeing now, they're doing candy parties. That means going into mom or dad's medicine cabinet and grabbing prescription medications, putting them in a big bowl, and everybody just takes a handful and goes on potluck and whatever they take. It's really, really dangerous. It's really dangerous. And I don't think our young people these days even realize the permanent damage they're doing to their bodies. And for people in my generation, I never even heard of anything like this. We didn't have these kind of parties when I was growing up. So it's hard for us, without having the education, to teach our children something that we really don't know anything about. With Rohypnol, ketamine, ecstasy, these are all things that are seeing a surge in the last probably 10 years, more so than when we were growing up. The GHB, known as Liquid-X, Georgia Homeboy, Goop, it was originally sold as a natural medicine. And a lot of these things actually have a legal medical use in other countries now. It's banned in the United States. But they were sedative type kind of drugs. They were meant to cause relaxation, pain relief, even like an anesthesia type kind of quality. In March 2000, GHB was placed in Schedule 1 of the Controlled Substance Act, which makes it illegal to possess in the United States. The person that's taking this is often confused. Like you might have somebody that says, I was sexually assaulted last night. I know because I can feel in my body that something's happened, but I don't remember anything. It used to be that we were like, oh, yeah, she must be making this up. She must be lying, that this never happened. But the reality is that a lot of these drugs, there is no memory of the assault. The person that's sexually assaulted has no memory of what occurred. They might, there's been reports that it's like a movie playing really slowly, that they might get little pieces here and there, but overall they really don't know anything that occurred. There's often drowsiness, dizziness, vomiting associated with it. And again, it's something that when you go to the hospital, we'll probably take your blood and test to make sure that you weren't drugged. Okay, let's get through this. Same thing with roofies. Ketamine, it's the new ecstasy. It's used in veterinary medicine. It's the closest, I would say the closest thing right now that's kind of happening. It's the big thing. Ecstasy is a close derivative of methamphetamine. It's a stimulant. So a lot of these kids now, when they're drinking, you hear the combinations of alcohol and Red Bull, where one has alcohol is obviously depressant. Some of these drugs are stimulants. A lot of times they'll counteract a stimulant with a depressant. They don't feel as drunk, but they're consuming a lot more alcohol because the body's natural response when you're drinking is to kind of shut down, and eventually you get really tired and you pass out. Well, when you're mixing drugs with a stimulant, that doesn't happen, and you consume a lot more alcohol than you normally would or intended to because your body's not giving you that signal that, okay, we've had enough and now we're starting to slow down. So how do you prevent becoming a victim? And I tend to not like the word victim because I think once you go through something like that, you're truly a survivor. You're a survivor of a sexual assault. Is that you date people you know. A friend of a friend, somebody that you trust. Go on a group date. Have your first date be a lunch date. Monitor your friends and your alcohol. A lot of times I hear from young girls, oh, well, I went with a bunch of girls. Well, what happens when you go with a bunch of young girls, whether that be high school age, college age, young adult age? Is everybody goes to the party together, but then what happens? You meet people, you kind of separate, and you kind of lose touch with each other while you're someplace. Keep an eye on each other. And again, we have to take some personal responsibility for ourselves and to monitor our own actions, saying, look, I know that if I drink that next drink, or if I'm drinking, or if I'm in a place where I don't know, I need to be aware of my surroundings, and I need to make sure that I'm with people that I trust. We have a natural built-in, mechanism in our body. And the back of your hair starts to stand up on your neck, and you're like, oh man, this isn't right. Something about this isn't right. Trust your instincts. They're there for a reason. It's built in your body for you to recognize when there's danger. And a lot of times I think we're kind of hesitant to follow up on that. We kind of think, well, we don't want to make somebody feel uncomfortable, or we're taught to be polite, or if somebody makes us feel uncomfortable, we're accommodating to them. But at some point, you got to say, look, you know what, this isn't right. I got to take care of myself, and I need to leave the situation. Watch your drink. Watch how much you drink. Don't get intoxicated. Tell someone when you're going. This is the big thing. Kids, especially, they might say they're going to spend the night at Susie's house. Then they go to Jeannie's house, and then they go to a party. If something was to happen, nobody really knows where you are. As an adult, when you live alone, if you disappear, really, will anyone know that you're missing? So think about that. If you're going to go out with somebody, especially if it's somebody that you don't know and you've just met, consider letting someone know that you're going to be out, and let that person that you're going with know you're telling someone. Hey, this is where I'm going. I'm going to be going to this place with so-and-so. Yeah, I just met them. And we'll go into transportation and stuff a little bit later. Don't be pressured into doing something you don't want to do, and again, be aware of your surroundings. No means no. Not, if you try hard enough, I'll say yes. Okay, you've got to be assertive in putting out your feelings about something. If you want to be someplace or go someplace with someone or do something with someone, be sure about what your decision is going to be prior to going to that place, and stick with your convictions. And again, with the guys, if you have sons, teach them. No means no. Anything but a verbal yes is a no. We have rules regarding touching people to do EMS now. When you're looking at entering into a relationship with somebody that's so intimate, we need to protect our young men by explaining to them, you need to make sure that this is okay, by saying, you're not intoxicated. You're clearly entering this because you want to be in this relationship. You're not breaking the law by entering in an illegal relationship with somebody who's underage. And that you're making sure that you're not pushing yourself on that person. Okay, while you're at home, your drapes and your shades, a lot of times, and I don't know if you guys remember the old movies where you see this really hot girl getting changed, and you can see the silhouette and little boys across the street with binoculars. Be aware of that at your own house. You know, when you're getting undressed or you're someplace in your home, especially if you live by yourself, you want to make sure that you have drapes that are really solid, that they're not sheer, that they're not silhouetting your body. Your outdoor lighting. This is so important for even just general crime prevention for everybody. You know, make sure that you have a well-lit front door, well-lit back door. Make sure that your house isn't something that, when you traditionally looked at the old crime prevention things, what did you see? A stranger wearing the trench coat with a big hat and the shadows. You don't want to create shadows in your home. You want to make sure that it's well lit so that when you're getting there, you can see a clear, safe path to your door. Your doors and your locks. In the city of Lancaster, when we go into the other part here, we have a neighborhood watch program. Have a neighborhood watch or get a neighborhood watch started in your area. Have the specialists come out and give you tips on securing your home. Like these are just a few little things that I'm giving you, but there's so much information out there on home safety. I would definitely encourage you getting a neighborhood watch started in your neighborhood and hosting a party. If you don't feel comfortable doing it in your home, you can do it at a church, in a community room. You can do it at a school, in a cafeteria, or you could do it in any other government or public place that will allow you to do a public meeting. One of the things I can say is in your door. You'll notice that when your door, there's the locking mechanism. You see that the screws that go inside and hold the plate that the lock goes into. A lot of those screws are really tiny. Get those suckers out and put at least, I would say, a good 1.5 inch screw into that and secure that plate into the door really well. You can fortify your door with just a few cents, just putting in bigger screws. Make sure your door's secure, and make sure that the hinges are really secure, and it can't just be pushed open. Your windows, make sure at night, I know, especially during the summertime, it's really expensive to keep the air conditioning costs up. If you're going to leave your windows open, try to find some kind of a locking mechanism that allows you to open it a small little amount, but that the window's still secure. We've had a few burglaries that have occurred where people have come in while the people were sleeping. And you don't want to find yourself in a situation where, you know, someone's invaded your home. Spare key. Don't keep a spare key under a pot in your front door. Don't put it under your mat. Don't put it above the light. Don't put it, because as burglars, they look for the fake rock. They look for all these things that we think, wow, we've got them tricked. I'm going to hide it behind the fake rock. Well, no, because they know where it's at. So if you're going to have a spare key, keep it with a neighbor that you trust, or keep it maybe secured someplace else. You maybe keep an extra key in your purse somewhere, or your place at work, in your desk, or someplace, but don't put it in the traditional secret spots, because everyone knows about it. When you get a knock at the door, I know a lot of people think it's rude not to just open the door, but if somebody comes to your house and you haven't invited them there, you're under no obligation to open your door. Unless it's us and we're in uniform and we come, then please let us in. But look at the people. Look through the people. Look through a window. See who it is. Ask who it is. Hey, who is this? Oh, this is so-and-so. I'm doing a survey. No, thank you for, but I'm not interested. If they're going door to door and they're selling things, a lot of these things sometimes are ruses. While there's legitimate businesses that are going door to door, there's also a lot of people that take advantage of those systems by coming to the door and seeing if anyone's home, and if they're not home, they go around to the back and break in. So, yeah. Her question was, she's heard of things happen where little kids sometimes are often used as ruses. They'll knock on the door and then someone opens the door, then the people would run in and take advantage of it. To be honest, I've not heard that particular thing happening out here, but it's not to say that it hasn't happened. Anytime that you have somebody where you have that opportunity to come to the door, you always have that risk. So just be really careful. And even often at times it's, help me, help me, help me. And then what do we have that natural desire to want to open the door and help somebody out? And then you open the door. So if something like that happens, get on the phone and call 911 and say, especially if it's nighttime, because we had a few home invasion robberies over the last 10 years that occurred like that. Someone was frantically banging on the door. As soon as they opened the door, it was a takeover, home invasion robbery. So again, not that I'm encouraging you not to help anyone, but the best thing that you can do for somebody is to call 911 and say there's somebody banging on the door. Now you can look through the people. If you see someone that obviously looks like they need help, or if there's somebody chasing them or something, yeah, you have that option of whether you want to help that person. And it'd be nice if you did help them, but you got to be conscious of your own safety and also the safety of your family. You don't know what that person is bringing into your family and what they could be exposing you to also. So the best thing you can do is call 911 and tell them you have a woman, man screaming at your door for help and you're not sure what the situation is, but and then if you can help them, but keep yourself safe. Harassing phone calls. I'm not just talking about telemarketers. If you get harassing phone calls and you have somebody that's, just keeps calling you, you can call the sheriff's department and we can come out and we can take a report. It's called threatening or harassing or lewd phone calls. Sometimes you just get the kids that constantly call every night. Is your refrigerator running? Well, you better go catch it. Up to heavy breathing or other things that are just obnoxious and meant to be harassing or frightening. If that thing happens, something like that happens, call us and let us know. We can come out and take a report. And then what happens is you call the phone company, you give them the file number of the report, and they put what's called a trap on the phone. And then you keep a log, and you log the dates and the times of when these calls occurred and what was said, whether it be heavy breathing, whether it be lewd remarks or whatever it is, but you'll have a log, and then that'll go to the detective that's handling the case and it will help us actually prosecute it. And it helps us when you're getting multiple phone calls coming in to identify the number of the person that's the harasser, and it's not your mom calling to see how you're at, what you're doing. Your cell phone. Keep your cell phone with you. If you don't have a cell phone, get a cell phone if you can, even if it's a Go phone. Even if you can't afford minutes, but you can keep the battery charged, they will call 911. Just like your phone number at home. If you have a phone at home, even though you don't have phone service, if there's ever been a connection there, and it's just a matter of the phone company turning it on, a lot of times it'll dial straight 911. So please have a cell phone with you. Make sure the battery's charged. When you're leaving your house, make sure you prepare it for when you come home. If you know that you're going to be coming back at night, leave a light on for yourself. Think about if you're going to be gone an extended time, having timers coming on so that it looks like somebody's home, especially if you're living by yourself. Get to know your neighbors. Now, some neighbors are the ones you're kind of concerned about for your safety, but get to know your neighbors. That's why I say have a neighborhood watch. Have barbecues in the street. And form some sense of community within your neighborhood, because those are the people that are going to know you. And if they get to know you, then they're going to know that, okay, the mom and the dad, or the mom and her kids live here, or there's an older gentleman who lives by himself here. And when they notice people that are there on their property that don't belong there, then they'll be able to call the sheriff's department and say, look, something's not right. I know they live alone and I see somebody taking stuff out of their house, or I know that it's a family there, and these are some young kids that I've never seen before, and they're taking stuff out of their house. One of the other scams, the kind of things that we have going on too, is gardeners. They come in the gardening trucks. And now, I'm not saying every landscaping person is a crook. There are legitimate landscaping people in there. But one of the ploys that we're seeing emerging now is they're people that you tend to ignore on the street because they're commonplace. It's not uncommon to see gardening trucks on the street. If you notice that they're not mowing the lawn, or they're not, edging, or if they're bringing stuff to the truck, call 911. Be good neighbors. Let's see. Your vehicle safety. When you get back to your car, where it's been parked someplace, do a visual scan of your car. Now, you might want to just kind of, I'm not saying get on your hands and knees and look under it, but as you're approaching your car, kind of look under it. If you're parked by a van with a sliding door especially, just be really careful as you're approaching it. Now, I don't want you guys to be paranoid, and I'm not trying to say, oh my gosh, you have to look at every corner for, the next attack, but just be aware of your surroundings. Because being confident and being aware make you less of a vulnerable target and a less desirable target than somebody that's maybe not paying attention. Somebody with their head in their purse, reaching for their keys, somebody that they couldn't identify the person that was to attack them because they're not paying attention. Once you're inside your car, lock your doors. Lock your doors. Keep your purse on the floor. Don't put it on the seat right next to you. A lot of times, especially if you're stuck in a traffic area, how easy is it for someone just to come and smash your window and grab your purse right off the seat? And then when you're parked and you get out of your car, make sure that you don't have any valuables that are laying around. I didn't put it on here, but one of the things that is always kind of funny is you see the entire family on the back of the windows. And if any of you have that on yours, I'm not meaning to say anything degrading towards that. But if you identify everybody that's on your car who lives in your house, if someone's casing your home, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure, okay, well, Katie left, Bob left, Jeannie left, and so-and-so left. There's nobody left that's in the house. So, and women tend to have that stuff on their car, so it's easier for a man to realize that that's our car. Like if you have one hot chick on your license plate, okay, more than likely my husband wouldn't be driving that car. But if I was to be driving that car, it would let somebody know that's probably a girl's car. It's probably, and it makes it easier to narrow down a target, especially with young girls because they have, and I try to tell my own kids, you might have your diploma tassel, you might have, girly things on your car that identify it as being a female's car. Again, when I'm a predator looking for somebody to attack, that to me might be an easy target. Would be somebody that I would think would be a young girl. Disabled vehicle. You hear a lot of the scams of people that you're driving down the street and they bump your car and then you pull over. Make sure when something like that happens, if it feels weird, don't get out of your car. Don't get out of your car, call 911 and just say, look, this doesn't feel right. Somebody just bumped my car. I'm by myself. It might be a remote area. It might be a dark area. I don't feel comfortable getting out. Obviously, you want to exchange information, but you have to do it in a way that you're going to be safe, especially if you're by yourself. With that being said, keep your car in good working order. Don't change your oil when the light comes on. Get a regular maintenance on your vehicle so that you don't break down, and you don't break down in an area that's going to be, where you're going to be vulnerable. Parking. We like to park our cars sometimes way far because it gives us a better walk and a little bit more exercise. But consider at nighttime parking closer or at least under a street light where it's well lit. So when you're walking back to your car, you're not in a real dim situation. And then your keys. Having your keys out. I try to make it a habit of having my keys out at the register and I forget. And it's like, if your purse looks anything like mine, I have a suitcase and I can't find anything in it. And so if you have ever looked for something in a panic, if you've ever been late, and you know how that feels when you're looking for something and it's taking you probably twice as long to find it because you're kind of in that panic mode, imagine if you're running for your life to try to get to your car and your keys are in your purse amongst all the garbage that's in there. You're not going to be able to run and dig as you're going. So think about at the register, before you go out to your car, having your keys already out in your hand, ready to be used. And also, when you go take your car to a garage, make sure the only key that's on there, if you take it in for maintenance, for valet, or for anything, anytime you give your keys to anybody else, make sure you only have the car key on it, that you don't have your house keys. Because what's inside your car? Your registration. How many times you take your car to get serviced, you give them your set of keys. Well, your house key is on there, your address is on there. It's very easy for someone to make a copy of your house key while your car is getting worked on or while it's being parked in valet, or they can make an impression of it and make a new key. Public transportation, put elevator in there. It's technically not public transportation, but what happens when you get in an elevator? You get in an elevator and it's really uncomfortable. I don't care how many people are in that elevator. If you're in the elevator and you're by yourself and somebody gets on that elevator and what I told you earlier, that the hair on the back of your neck stands up, get out of the elevator. Don't worry about hurting their feelings. Don't worry about, again, if you get that feeling inside you that something's not right, just get off. Same thing if you're in a carport and you're coming down to a level maybe where you don't see anybody else there and you're in a parking garage or you're someplace and you see somebody there and they just strike you like, oh, this doesn't seem right. Trust your instinct. Don't worry about hurting their feelings. It's more important for you, for your safety, that you might call security and say, hey, look, I'm really nervous. There were some people that were hanging around my car, or there's, a group of kids, or, there might be some, whatever the feeling might be, and ask them just to walk you to your car. And most businesses will do that for you. If you go to the grocery stores at night and you're feeling uncomfortable, you can ask them, do you have security here? And if you do, or can you have a bag person walk me out, or a cart person? And they are happy to do that for you. On a plane, when you travel, you put your home information on your suitcase. Well, everybody that touches your suitcase knows that you're out of town, and they have your address. So consider using a P.O. box or a business address or something like that, so that if your suitcase does get lost, there's a good contact number for you, but that you're not advertising to everybody who has your suitcase that you're going to be out of town. On a bus, stay close to the driver if you can. Same thing with like a train or a subway. If you're able to stay where you see either a police officer on there, or like on the Metrolink, we have law enforcement officers that ride the Metrolink. If you see that when they're there, if you want to sit near them or sit in a place that's well lit or with other people, but be careful getting on a car or an area that's somewhat isolated. And then taxi, ask them who they're sending. You call the taxi cab service, hey, who are you sending to my house? Oh, I'm going to send Bob. Okay, that's fine. As soon as you get in the car, hey, Bob, and you'll see the name on the license. Or if you first get in the cab, look at the name on the permit on there and then address that person by their name. That way they know that you know who they are. You've seen their license, you can identify them, and if something should happen to you, you at least know who you were with that day. Dating, other social networking, whatever. Consider giving cell phones or business work phones other than your home phone number until you get to know the person. When you drive, and even for real estate agents, don't get in the car with somebody that you don't know. If they have transportation, have them follow you over, have them meet you someplace. A person that you just met doesn't need to know where you live. Until you've established that you like this person and they're not going to be a stalker and there's somebody that you want to see again, consider meeting them on a lunch date or consider driving yourself to the place and just meeting them there. Good night. Good night at the door is always awkward. Say goodbye in the car. Say goodbye at the restaurant. Say goodbye someplace else. Until you're ready for that relationship to go to a different level, keep everything where it's not so awkward. You don't want to be struggling trying to close your door with somebody that's persistent in getting in. So if at the end of the night, it's been a great night, hey, good night, see you later. I'll see you next week. You want to see them again until you get to know them. Advertising. Especially if you're a woman and you live alone, you don't want to advertise your first and last name. Whether it be the phone book, consider using a first initial and a last name. If you're advertising for in the paper for something, you might want to use just a last name or initial, some other name. Consider using, and a lot of women are offended when I say, have a male put their voice on your answering machine if you don't have one that's already on it saying, oh, we're not home right now. No one needs to know that you don't live alone, or that you live alone. Virtual networks, MySpace, Facebook, Twitter. We put more of our personal business out than ever before. And you open yourself up to a lot more. We're noticing with young girls, especially, everybody sure has the picture. Everyone's got a picture. Are you guys having that picture? In the mirror, everyone's got a picture of yourself. The look, the makeup, the the poses. These reality sites give us a little bit more liberty than we normally would have in our normal lives. You might see traditionally really shy girls, and then you go to their Facebook or their MySpace, and you're like, oh, holy, I'm thinking, oh my God, I've been doing that till I was in my 20s. And so just be aware when you have that information out. If you have it, keep it set to private. There's a lot of predators who go online and they pretend that they're young, really cute guys, and they're 50-year-old perverted guys looking for girls, or they are sexual predators looking for an easy target. And when you click on yes, if a stranger was to walk up to you and ask you your name, ask you where you went to school, asked you where you lived, you wouldn't tell them. But on a social network, when you're with a trusted person, because it's easy to find trust on the internet, you're more willing to give up a lot of information. And what do you say? Me and my friends are going to the mall on Saturday. I have a soccer game at this place on Saturday. It's going to be really fun. And you put out to people where you're going to be and that you're going to be gone. And then all these other people are going to be going there with you. If I'm a predator and I'm looking at that and I'm watching these public sites, it's very easy for me to find parties, groups of kids that are going to be hanging out, a lot of personal information that if I was to come up to you and I say, oh, you're Brittany, I know you. And then inside, what do you do when you don't know somebody? You fake it like you remember them, because my husband does it all the time. He can never remember anybody's name, so they're all dude. So you go up and you say, hey, Brittany, how are you? And you're like, oh, good. Well, you're talking to them and you feel comfortable with them because they know your name. And they know your name because they got it off your site. But there's that false sense of, oh, they know me. They must be okay. They know a lot about me. They must really know my parents. They must know this. And that's what these predators take advantage of. So just be careful with those. Now, your clothing. I don't think, my personal belief is everybody has a right to wear whatever they want to wear. Within modesty, obviously, for society rules. But think about, if you're wearing that really tight skirt or that really tight restrictive shirt, if you had to fight for your life, could you do it? If you're wearing those really cute 4-inch heels, could you sprint if you had to? So those are the kind of things that we think about, is that you can wear whatever you want. You have the right to wear whatever you want. But just make sure that if you have the clubbing clothes or you have the clothes that you like to look cute in, that you practice fighting in them. Because one day you might have to. And if you got those really cute shoes that lace up all around your ankle, all the way up, especially these new Gladiator type kind of shoes, you're screwed because those things don't come off easy. So think about, your clothing options. Carry a pair of good walking shoes in your car so that if you break down and you had to hoof it, you could at least have something that you could, walk comfortably in. I always tell my kids, bring, warm clothes in the car, bring shoes, and they think I'm crazy. But I tell them just in case, have water. You never know. So it's just survival things. And then exercising. Be in some kind of form of physical exercise. Because again, if you had to fight, could you fight? And then for how long? How long before you're thoroughly exhausted? And then deciding to be in a self-defense class. Self-defense, whatever program you decide to take, should be teaching you things that are enough to make you stun your attacker and then run. Anything that's teaching you to engage your attacker for anything longer than that, be wary of. Because the reality is that if you're fighting for 10 seconds, it's going to feel like 10 hours. In a realistic situation, it might be 2 minutes. But time yourself running in place really hard for 2 minutes, and you'll find yourself exhausted if you're not in any kind of a routine, regular plan. So think about that. Use your voice. When you're with someone, say yes when you mean yes, and say no when you mean no. We're taught in society that girls say no. But if you try hard enough, we might say yes. Am I right? So for men, that's very confusing. because they're like, oh, okay, this is just part of the program. I know that she's saying no, but if I try hard enough, then yeah, she'll eventually give in. Be very clear, be assertive. Take responsibility for your safety, through all the things that we just talked about. And then protect those that depend on you. If your child comes to you and says that they've been assaulted, if your friend comes to you and says that they've been assaulted, if your neighbor, help them get help. Don't automatically think that they're not telling you the truth, because really the number of people that actually fake sexual assaults or fake being victimized of some kind of sexual abuse is very small. Very, very small, especially in children, because it takes so much courage for a child. No, I'm not talking about people that are involved in custody disputes with their ex and they go back and forth and they manipulate their children, because there are a small number of people that do that. I'm talking about the kids that come to you and tell you and give you a situation where it's accurate. Somebody's touched them inappropriately. If they come to you, know that it took everything inside them for them to come to you and tell you that. If they don't feel comfortable talking to you, encourage them to talk to another adult, be a teacher, law enforcement, pastor, friend, anybody that can get them some help. What should you do if you become a rape survivor? First, find a safe environment, anywhere the attacker's not. Get to a place, a business, get to somewhere where there's a lot of people. Preserve evidence. Don't brush your teeth. Don't take a shower. If you change your clothes, we would advise you not to change your clothes, but if you just need to, put them in a paper bag, not a plastic bag, but a paper bag. Call 911, report it to the authorities. You may not decide to go through with prosecution, but the documentation that this assault's occurred, this person more than likely has done it before and they're going to do it again. Your reporting the incident just solidifies for the next person that's got the courage like you to come up and report it, to make it more believable. So if that happens, say, whether you decide to prosecute it or not, you have that option, but at least report it so that it's documented. Should you change your mind later, we've got all the information that we need and we preserved all the evidence. Even if you don't think that you were injured, if it was an attempt, still report it and still let us go and try to get something from it, because they may have left some kind of physical evidence on you that we could use to even help somebody else. Remember, it's not your fault. Okay? A lot of times there's a lot of guilt associated with sexual assaults. My feeling is, whether you allowed yourself to go through the motions and you didn't fight for your life, you did the right thing because you were able to tell somebody what happened to you. And you did, whether you choose to fight, whether you choose to comply at the time, anything that you do to get through that attack where you're alive and you're able to tell somebody about it, you did the right thing. A lot of times there's guilt associated with, I could have fought harder, or I could have, and you could have been killed. The only thing that I would say absolutely is to never get in the car with somebody, because if you get in that car, my feeling is you're not coming back. So in that case, if someone's trying to get you in a car to take you, fight with everything you have not to get in that car. Just scream, bite them, poke their eyes out, do whatever you need to do, but to not get in that car with that person. If you believe that a sex crime is about to occur, safely intervene. Now, we've heard in the media about various sexual assaults where people watched for hours as a young girl was sexually assaulted. Okay, a lot of them believed that, she wanted it. They thought it was consensual. Okay, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to realize that when there's a bunch of men taking advantage of a woman there, something's not right. We as a society, I believe we owe each other that obligation, is to step in and call someone. Whether I don't want to go in and physically break it up, I can call for help. Finally, a woman that was a block or so away overheard what was happening and called. And if she hadn't called, who knows how long that attack would have gone on. So remove the person from the situation. If you're at a party and your friend's really intoxicated, and even if they're pissed off at you and they don't want to leave, make them leave. They'll appreciate it the next day. Then if they were to wake up the next morning going, God knows what they did the night before, and have all the regret and the anguish over their last night's decisions. If your friend's getting intoxicated and too intoxicated to stop them from drinking any more alcohol and stay with them, don't leave them alone. A lot of people don't realize is just if somebody's so extremely intoxicated, they could choke on their own vomit. So that's something to think about too. There's a lot of other things other than sexual assault with somebody that's been drinking, especially a lot of alcohol. You're looking at alcohol poisoning, vomiting, aspirating into their lungs. So think about that. And then tell or call someone who can help. Call the police, sheriff, or rape hotline. Tell someone, anyone, don't second guess yourself. A lot of the things that we're having with the kids that we don't get reported is because they're worried that they were underage drinking, and they're afraid that when we get there as law enforcement, they're going to get in trouble. Trust me, if you're a survivor of sexual assault, the least thing I'm worried about at that point was that you are drinking. I want to make sure that you get help. I want to make sure that you are being taken care of. I want to make sure that whoever did this is held to answer for their actions. Your parents, your guardian, they might be a little bit upset that you were drinking. But again, that's probably just a gut reaction of, why did you do that? But down deep inside, their main thing is your safety. So please don't ever be afraid not to say something happened because you're afraid of any legal ramifications that might happen for how you got there. And then a lot of people are, well, nobody's going to believe me. Yeah, we're going to believe you. Just take that chance and get it reported so that you can help someone else. And then collect evidence if you can. Again, panties, bed sheets. I don't recommend keeping a dirty dress in the closet for a year. But if you have clothing and stuff, again, separate the clothing, put it in brown paper bags, and then you can bring it with you to the hospital. And then, let's see. These are the local numbers if you want to jot them down. These are the non-emergent numbers for Lancaster Palmdale Station, and it's also for Valley Mesa Sexual Assault Response. Whenever someone's assaulted, they go to the hospital. There's two teams. Well, it's one team, but there's the Sexual Assault Response Team and the Sexual Assault Response Service. One takes care of the medical collection of evidence, working with an advocate who's there for you emotionally. The advocate will be with you every step of the way while they collect the evidence, while they package it. When you go to court for counseling, they're going to be with you all throughout it. But again, they are your advocate. The SAR's there for evidence, the SAR's there for you. And then that's the Rape Crisis Hotline. It's a 1-800 number. So what happens is law enforcement is called, and the person's going to come in a uniform. They're going to come take your statements. They're going to take a report. You go for your SART exam. Collection of semen, saliva, bodily fluids can be done up to 72 hours following a sexual assault. A detective is either called out that day or the next day, and they're assigned the case. Any evidence that can be collected is collected either at the hospital or at the scene, depending on when it occurred and where it's being reported at. And then there's follow-up and also obviously the suspect process. If we can get to the suspect within that same 72-hour period, we can also collect evidence from that person. So it's important that if you know who your attacker is, that if you let us know, we can go out there and we can get them into custody, and we can also collect DNA from that person also. And then know that there's court. The decision to follow through with court is, again, a totally personal decision. Again, just getting it documented, because right then you might be scared, but later on, down the line, you may decide you want to follow through with it. And at least if we've gone through the whole process correctly and we've gotten all the evidence, we'll have a good enough case to follow through with. Questions? You want to have it?
On the DNA evidence, let's say if you collected some at the scene, how can you confirm it's that person? Do you need a court order or?
Well, it depends on on the person. For example, if I can get the person in a relatively easy time, I can collect semen from that person. We can do swabs. We can do an oral, just in their mouth. We have a huge database at the station for when people are arrested, they come in, and if they have felonies and they get a DNA sample that's already taken from them, they might be arrested on a totally different charge, but they'll be able to link the DNA from your sexual assault to them from their mouth swab. A lot of cases are being closed like that because there was DNA evidence that was recovered at a scene. It was a typical cold case until 20 years down the line, because DNA wasn't collected on every case years ago. We're able to match up cases now that typically went unsolved. Our first time, well, if you know who that person is and you'll tell us who it is, we'll collect their DNA and it'll be there. Because when they get arrested and they go in there and they get their swab taken, their evidence will be in the system.
You mentioned something about the self-defense. Is there any classes or anything that the Sheriff's Department puts on for self-defense?
Yes, we're going to be doing a RAD program, and a little later tonight, we're going to do just a few quick things, time permitting.
I also have one coming up.
Okay.
I also have a flyer to hand out later that has an upcoming class.
Okay. We're going to be putting on the RAD classes again. For those of you not familiar with the Rape Aggression Defense Program, it's a certified program where it's a 12-hour class, and we teach it at 3-hour increments. The first class is pretty much a lecture. Because you guys were here in this lecture tonight, you would pretty much be fast-forwarded. That's why we've collected all your information today. So if we had a class for all of you here tonight, we would go through all the paperwork, we'd go through some of the other things, and we'd go right into the physical. There's the other 2 nights, we're learning different stances, different strikes, kicks, ground techniques, and then the very last night you fight the aggressors. And the decision to fight the aggressors is totally optional. If you decide that you would like to put your techniques to use, you can. If you decide, you know what, I'm not really comfortable with that, but I'd like to go and participate and watch, then you're welcome to do that too. We have people from the Sexual Assault Response Service, Patty Rivetti. She's also with Valley Oasis, and Lisa Rodriguez is the program manager. So they're here from Valley Oasis, but more than likely one of these ladies would be called out to assist us with the class. Lisa is a co-instructor. She teaches the class with me, the RAD classes. And we teach the classes free of charge. However, if you wanted to make a donation, a tax-free donation to the Sexual Assault Response Service to go towards victim services, you could do that. Okay. The month of April is Sexual Assault Awareness Month, and we are working with the schools, with the city, with the community to try to get some things out for that. We're working on right now a walk, a mile in her shoes, where men actually wear high heels for a mile so they can feel what it feels like to wear high heels. But it's also, again, to generate revenue for the Sexual Assault Response Service so that we can get needed things. People don't realize that the SARS people that come into the hospital are volunteers. They're not paid. So you have the medical staff, and then you have the staff from SARS who come out. Clothing, unlike domestic violence shelters where you can give out used clothing or gentle use clothing, you can only give out brand new clothing to sexual assault survivors. So we're always in need of those things, especially for children. Sweats, t-shirts, things that are very comfortable, that when they come in we have to take their clothing, that we can give them fresh panties, a fresh bra, pants, a sweatshirt or a t-shirt, and some sweatpants and socks. Again, so any monies that, that if people wanted to donate anything for the class, that would go towards buying those materials. Yes, ma'am.
This is going back a few scenes on your screen, but in a car, I have gotten emails that if someone is following you, you can dial 86, I believe it is.
Call 911. just call 911. There are things in different states where you can dial these combinations of numbers, but you don't want to remember what those numbers are. 911 goes directly to the highway patrol. Yeah.
Oh.
So just
Good,
call.
thank you.
Yeah, just call 911. Anything else?
Anyone else?
All right. Well, I want to thank you all for coming. I've enjoyed this very much. And that concludes our presentation for tonight. Thank you.
Also, we have handouts in the back, so please take as much as you'd like.